Thanks a lot. You are on the road with the wolf, and this is a D-Log. Today we're going to talk about management and employee-employer interaction. The one thing that I've always heard, especially when it comes to when you end the relationship from your previous job to the next, a lot of times this is what I've heard, is like every ex-employer is, an asshole, an inconsiderate jerk, just using you, which, that's, but, it's always, doesn't give a shit about you, you're there, you're a number, and they'll steal from you if they can, basically, take your time, and just expect you to do it, and every ex-employee is usually, poor work skills, a thief, not a team player. And I've always thought that when it came to business, you're always going to have your on and off days for sure. You're not going to be at your best every day. A lot of times the job requires this, and there's a set list of things you have to do, and you have to go by those as your basic guidelines for your job. And when you're expected to do over those things, it gets frustrating. Because you have your own time period, you have your the things that you've got to do that are important to you, kids, school, and you have to prioritize. And when you have to prioritize over your kids or your family or your job, or just your lifestyle, it kind of sucks. And that's part of the whole thing about being employed is you got to grow up. You got to, it's no longer, you do some chores and you get an allowance, or you get some chores or you go work for the neighbor, get paid for cleaning something. It's not like that anymore. When you get out in the job field, there are expectations, and sometimes those expectations go a bit further than you feel comfortable with. And you have to decide whether that's going to be okay or not. And then decide if maybe those things require, it's like, hey, no, this is, hey, maybe you need to get a new job. Or further action. You know what I'm saying? As an employer, you need people to fill the slots to do the deeds. You need somebody who's good at the money keeping. You need somebody who's good at the managing of the service. You need people who can do the job, stock the shelves, and because when you become, when you have a business, time is money. And that's kind of scary, because if you start thinking that time is money, every single minute, if it's not working, it's like money lost. And then you get really, really anxious and really, really upset if you look over and you see some people who are fucking off. Now, the thing is that a lot of businesses will have this, work for a certain period of time, get a certain period of time to, for restroom use or this or that, 45 minutes and then 15 for bathroom, 45 minutes and that kind of thing. And sometimes that works. And you're only there for a certain period of time, normally 40 hours, I think, is full-time. Is it 30 to 40 hours is full-time. And the thing is that if you end up getting salary, then you can be called on to do more than that. And that's just how that works. You can either not do it or do it. And an employer is really looking for a team player. Somebody's going to be really a go-getter in the job and want to do the job. And the only problem that I've ever had with that is that while the employer wants somebody to be a team player and all about, it's like somebody who's planning on staying, who's not also planning on learning all this stuff, applying into the job, doing really well, and then 5 days later quits and goes works for somebody else. They want somebody who's going to be in, can do the job, and do it well. And that's, expectations. But sometimes the job expects more from you than you should. Like, you've got a kid that's got to go to doctor, and you know beforehand. You contact your boss or your head of department or whatever, and you say, hey, I'm going to need off between this time to this time. And they say, sure, that shouldn't be a problem. But when the time comes up, they say, sorry, we couldn't book it. You're just going to have to find something else. You got to do, there's nothing we can do about it. And then you have to take the time off. You just be like, oh, whoa. That was a crane. A big, almost pelican-esque. It wasn't a pelican, but it was a very large bird flying very slowly right in front of my car. It's like out of the woods. I mean, we've got a park nearby, and there's some water, so I'm guessing maybe it was just chilling there. But wow, that was kind of freaky. It's a dog. He's so happy. Focus. Anyway, and it's frustrating to have to do that. To have to say, oh, I'm going to have to call in. I can't come in because you've tried calling family members or whatever, and still nada. So in the end, you end up having to do a bad thing. It's like, hey, and then there's the whole thing about, well, could you have done this? Could you not have, and then there's friction between you and management, and then eventually there's these negative feelings about you and your job and how they treat you and so on and so forth, and eventually it turns out to be something, there's a leave of job, or you affect other people with your negative attitude, that kind of thing. So, yeah. The best thing I can say in these kind of instances, because both the employer wants to fill a spot, but it's not personal. They just need somebody to fill the spot. Now for you, it's personal. You need a job, but the job is not personal. You're doing a job to get money to pay the bills. That's it. There's no other thing about it. I mean, you can make the job part of your life, or you do the job because eventually, in a very short period of time, a year or so, you're going to be going off to something else. And a lot of people don't really get that. That's why with some of these jobs, like flipping burgers, people are like, oh, it's a starter job. It's a job for, like teens and stuff. I was like, there are people who are in their 30s and 40s who are doing this job on a daily basis to make ends meet, because there's no job in their area that will take whatever they have, or they don't have expertise, and they work along with these teens and these early 20s people. And some people like the job. Some people really like flipping burgers, and it's a business that makes a lot of money. So when people talk about how, well, it's supposed to not pay very well because it's a starter job. No, it's an actual job. It is a job, plain and simple. And if you can't understand that, the next time you go to a place like this, let them know that before they make your burger, before they do this really simple thing that you could do, yeah. I really think that some people don't realize how insulting it is that these are actual jobs that, that take time. You actually have to pay attention to what you're doing. You have to be able to use the damn machines to begin with. And it's a 12 hour thing, and it's a job, and it's a constant job. It's not like, I'm not too sure if there's break room chill, never worked in a McDonald's or Burger King or whatever, and I for a long time had that mentality of I would never work in a McDonald's or a Burger King or whatever. And mostly because of how shit treated people are there, you know, and how like busy it gets, and how like so frustrated that some of the people who some customers get with them. And it's kind of like, just chill, you know. They're there for the paycheck. They want to take care of you, because once you're gone, there's somebody else. You're not special to them in that sense, you know. But they're not going to treat you like shit, because guess what? Bad Yelp reviews, bosses hate that. And for bosses, when it comes down to it, there are the ones that just kind of that have the mentality of everybody is replaceable, which is true. It is, everybody's replaceable. Everybody is retrainable for something else. So if it doesn't work out, you're done. But what works better? An employee that is willing to stick it out, do the job, wants to train, wants to earn the money from you, and cares about the company, especially if there's a brand. You know, if you've got an employee that doesn't give a shit about your brand, and you got an employee that's just like, hey, I'm team so-and-so, you want brand guy. You know, you want the guy that's, you know, up for your brand, because he's promoting something that he loves, and having a job that you can do, that you can like, versus doing a job that you hate. If employers could get that, that would be awesome. The problem is, like I said, life stuff gets in the way, you know, and you have to be a bit more flexible. But just how flexible depends on how worthy or how much worth you have to the company or to the managers that are over you. They say, we really like so and so. He does the job when he can. His mother's just been sick lately, or you know, he's also going to college, trying to get the degree, you know. And then of course it comes down to the point where it's like, well, how long is it going to? Anyway, everybody's story is different, but it's just important to realize that people have to do the jobs, and the employees don't need to worry too much, because they can always replace you. The only problem is that taking time to train new people again always becomes a problem, and then it becomes busier, because everyone who is doing their job is also kind of taking up the slack of the person who's not there anymore. Even if you got a new person, you're training the new person plus doing your job plus, see, it just kind of mounts up. If an employee can be understanding, and an employer can be also understanding as well, they can meet in between, and it becomes really, really great. And I occasionally get that where I work, where it just meshes really well. And other times it's just like one hand isn't even in the same ballpark as the other. You know, it's like when a manager tells you to do something, and then the boss comes in and says, hey, I'm planning on you doing this at the same time. Doesn't know the manager did that. And you're like, well, I'm doing this. It's like, well, I was going to have so-and-so do this. And then the other managers are like, hey, I was having him already do something. He's already left and gone and done it. Or so-and-so told me yesterday, hey, he's not coming in. And the boss is all like, well, why didn't you tell me? He's like, well, I'm the service manager. I was managing service. You know, and that becomes a bit of an issue of not necessarily micromanaging, but like when you spend a lot of your time being the boss, managing everything, and when you start delegating some of your authority to other people, but then you take that authority as well, so you got two people with the same amount of authority, who do you think people are going to listen to? The boss. So it gets a little bit frustrating for stuff like that, but usually if you can be a boss that listens instead of reacts, because a lot of bosses will react, but you can also be an employee that listens and tries their best to kind of be a bit more flexible for the job, it works. But the problem is, sometimes reeds bend, but they can break. And that's the sad truth of it. And the thing is, it just kind of goes both ways. And if you have a shitty employee or a shitty employer, I feel for you. Sometimes it's also employees versus employees. and that's what's really sad. But anyway, I just want to talk to you about that a little bit. It's a little bit of a pain for some people, and I know that it's you can't always be happy, and sometimes the job just feels like this worthless. It's like, what am I doing with my life? You're doing what you need to do to get through to the next one. Okay? It's going to be okay. Anyway, I'm wishing you health, wealth, and love with the time and gusto to enjoy it all down to the last drop. I am wishing you all the best. I hope that you have a great job that you enjoy. Even if it's not your dream job, as long as you can enjoy one thing out of the day, just find something that you can enjoy and do that. Obviously, plus everything else you have to do. Anyway, talk to you later.